Good afternoon. I'd like to call the February 20th regular meeting of the Utility Board to order. Madam Beaver, can you do the roll call here, please?
Ayala.
Here.
Berg.
Here.
Bourget.
Here.
Cranston.
Here.
Velasquez.
Here.
Thank you. You all have had a chance to read the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any corrections, amendments, or etc.? Hearing none, we'll approve them as published. It's now our time for citizen participation. We have a 5-minute time limit. Do we have any citizens? Mr. Vila.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is your mic good? That makes it on. Thank you.
Back in June, when this board decided that there should be an increase in water and electricity rates, and at that same meeting, there was discussion about taking a look at it at the end of the year. I just wondered if that had been done yet, and how much revenue was an increase compared to previous 6 months of the year. And if you guys are going to consider that in maintaining that rate of pay, that rate of increase for electricity and water, which I believe was a nickel, right?
I don't have that in my head, so I couldn't say. Does anybody recall? We can look it up, but so can you.
Okay, but I just wondered if you guys would take a look at that and see if there was anything discussed about it to, well, how are we doing? Or there was even a possibility of maybe not keeping it the entire year. But that was a concern I had. And I know it's still early this year, so maybe the figures haven't been able to be developed yet. Also, Rick Klein. Rick. Somebody call him.
No, I'm glad you brought those up, Ed, because that was one of the things I was on
Okay.
say during my comments.
Okay, I'll wait till then. But right now, I also came here to say again, goodbye, congratulations, and I hope everything goes well for you in your future.
Thank you very much.
And you and I have discussed this many times before, that you should perhaps consider being an adjunct professor at the college and teach city administration. Because I heard you talk to those college kids over the last 8 years. You done good.
Thank you.
Didn't I even tell you that?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'll be looking for a new addition to the college.
I'm not looking for a new job.
That's all I had, Gary. Thanks.
All right, thank you. To answer your question, we've not looked at, we could, but what revenues have been increased. I don't know if Lisa knows off the top of her head,
Yeah.
but do you have that?
So I went and got it, and there were actually 2 rate increases, for water and wastewater, and the first one was going to be a 10.1, which we passed. Then it had another one, and we put it off to look at it in 6 months, which would have been January, but we were going through the change right then. But for another 10%, and then in 2025, a 2%. And, it's just like with gas company. I've seen them go 22%, 13%, then like a 16%. Same thing here. Our bills have went up. We got to replace if we could get about 20% of our water system replaced, but we got to have money to do it. So, Holbrook Lake coming up. Gotta have money to do it, guys. So, you know, next month, I would implore you to put that 10% on and look at it over the last month. And did you get a copy of it, Pat?
I don't believe so.
Okay, we'll get that to you electronically and stuff. So, yes, and same thing goes on the wastewater side. Now, on the wastewater side, the reason why we got to do something is if we don't, we're about $400,000 in the hole, and we need to. We'll be $1 million in the hole, and there's no need to do that. And I believe this one was also a 5.8. I was believing, yes, 5.8. You know, and then another 2%. You know, and but that'll give you a chance to look at them both and stuff. Do you want me to send both of these studies back out to everybody?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay, sure
I'll
will.
have it.
Okay,
Sure.
so.
You mentioned a good thing there, Rick, about Holbrook Lake. Do you think it'll ever be a recreational lake anymore?
Oh, you
Like
know,
it was 70 years ago?
probably not like 70 years ago, but you know,
They had
the county-
dances and everything out there.
yeah, as long as they have the water, you know, there's 2 docks and a bathroom, but they won't ever have that swinging dock out
Okay.
or a pavilion.
All right, thank you. Any other
Would
citizens?
that be a state effort, Rick, or no?
County,
County?
yep.
If I could just add to that, when we talked about the rate design, it was 10.1, which was discussed April of '23,
Yeah.
but not passed until June,
That's something.
July.
July?
July.
Well, it's passed in July, effective July, passed in June, effective July.
July
1.
1st, yep.
Which then we should consider a 10% for this fiscal year of '24, and then a 2% in '25, which you just said.
Please, yes.
And,
You know, look at the documents and see they still hold true.
yeah, because I'm looking at that rate design.
You're gonna get busted.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay. Any other citizen input? All right, we'll proceed. I will read the ARPA report. ARPA is the 6-city entity from which we buy our power. For December, a summary of the financial and operating statements is as follows. In December, revenue was less than budgeted by 1.4%, roughly $30,000. Total revenue less than budget by $7,000. Cost of goods sold was right on budget. Purchase power costs were over budget by 0.2%, which is about $2,000. Transmission expenses were under budget by about $25,000. For the month, net revenue from operations was $395,479. For the year, revenue was from power sales was less than budget by 2.7%. That was $750,000 and change. Total revenues less than budget for the year by $404,000 and change. We had a great year for interest, like everybody had that. We had $347,000 in interest, which was quite a bit better than we budgeted. Total cost of goods sold for the year less than budget by 6.1%, which was $1.13 million. Purchase power costs for the year were 6% under budget, which was about $724,000. Transmission expenses were under budget by $476,000 roughly. For the year, A&G expenses were under budget by 0.7%. That was about $49,000. For the year, net revenue was $4,027,911. For the year, our debt service coverage ratio was 1.38 times. We're required to be 1.25, so we're doing good there. Operating report, ARPA paid the member solar installations $53.16 per megawatt hour, and that was 128.8 million watt hours. 109.4 million watt hours of those were produced by Lamar. They only report their usage in the December month, so usually it's around 20,000. For December, the sales of energy to the member cities was 0.66% greater than we budgeted, and that was almost 4% less than 2022. For the year, sales of energy were 2.9% less than we budgeted. That was 2% less than 2022. The system coincidental peak was 39 megawatts, and occurred on the 13th of December at 5 o'clock, the hour ending at 5 p.m. That was 1.3% less than the 2022 peak. For the year, all-in cost of power to the members was 9.994 cents a kilowatt hour. That's 2.2% lower than 2020, which was the year we took a rate decrease. Our next regular meeting is scheduled the 29th of this month, February, at Otero College in La Junta. Any questions or comments? All right, thank you. Let's proceed.
Hey Gary, before you ask Tom to come up, I want Lisa to come up because we redid the finances to a better format, and I want to make sure that we got them right. So I want her to explain it. I'm sorry I was sick last month, guys, but I watched the video and I saw, and I wanted her to, hey, what happened, right? And where we're at now. Okay.
So this is the format you had before, and what was on this was what was asked to be on this. I didn't sit down and do any of this. I was said, hey, show them the assets, hey, show them the liabilities, hey, only show them the revenue that is metered so they can compare it to ARPA. That's gone because it was kind of worthless. It didn't show you the whole picture that you needed. So we have the new format, which is every fund is using this format. Slight altercation in the general fund because of all the departments, but if you look at tourism, water, wastewater, urban renewal, all of them are going to be in this format, which I think is a much better format for everybody to follow. So you have your assets and you have your cash, and I'm using electric, I'm looking at electric, but if you look at any of them, they're all pretty much the same. But if you have an individual question on any of the individual funds, I'd be happy to answer that. But you have your cash, and then your investments. Then you have your accounts receivable, and yes, receivable is spelt wrong back and forth between the entire ADG system, and I fixed that. And then you have your inventory. That's what they keep at the warehouse. That is audited every year by the auditors, the inventory is. And then you have your fixed assets. That's your capital assets that we keep in our fixed asset system. And you'll see that total assets are $11,493,310.87. Then, as always, and I say this at budget, assets equal liabilities plus equity, or retained earnings, or fund balance. That's all the same thing. So your liabilities are your accounts payable. That's what we owe in bills that were not paid at the end of the month, but were in the computer. Customer deposits, when people pay that $300 deposit or that $100 deposit, we have to pay that back after 12 months of on-time payments. We also pay it with interest. So the customer deposits are the deposits plus interest. Then you have your accrued benefit. That's PTO, sick and vacation time that we owe the city employees for whatever fund it may be. And then you have your deferred revenue. you'll see that that goes away, but basically what that is that is either we paid for something in 24 that belonged in 23, or we paid for something in 23 that belonged in 24. So that goes away once the journals meet, okay? And that's based solely on if we have an expense that is obviously for 24, we ordered something ahead of time because we knew it was going to take forever to get here, or they gave us a bill in 24 that we pull back into 23. Then you have your fund balance. That fund balance is the year-end fund balance of the prior year. So in this case, that is 2023 year-end fund balance. And then you have your plus or minus fund balance. That's the change in 2024, whether it be January, February, March, April. That is the year-to-date change. And then you'll see that your liability side now equals the $11,493,310.87. Okay, so you can see the financials are balanced on the balance sheet. Then you have your statement of revenues and expenses. I still broke out your residential, commercial, industrial, and municipal because I think that you may benefit that when you look at the ARPA bill. Okay, I always say go with kilowatts, but some people like to go with cost. You know, it cost us this much, but we made this much. You'll be able to do that when the ARPA bill is sent out. And then I put the other sales, which are in the upper part of the actual financial, and then other revenue is the smaller, and the other sales would be your penalties, and then the other revenue is like your interest. You'll have your month-to-date, year-to-date, and then on the other side of that you have your expenses. Again, I pulled out ARPA for you so you can see the transmission, and then ARPA separate, and that's why we're looking at electric. And then you have your month-to-date and year-to-date. If you take your year-to-date revenue minus your year-to-date expenses, that is your $779,582.83 plus or minus fund balance. So the change in the fund balance is the change in your revenue versus expenses. And then I have your budget to actual, which just tells you that the budget is $12,206,700 less your expenses and your encumbrances, because we do encumbered. For people on Facebook that don't know what an encumbrance is, that's if we order something but we haven't paid for it, and we say, hey, hold on to that money because we're going to spend it on this item. It's done with purchase orders. When purchase orders are created, it encumbers the money. Then that leaves you on remaining budgets of $11,764,749.33. And your revenue exceeds your expenses again by the $779,582.83. You'll see that the format is the same on all of them. Any questions on any of the individuals?
I like it. It's transport was everything that you have to get through, so good job on that.
Okay, and one of the other reasons that I wanted to make it conformed is something the mayor said, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it made me believe that I should be making everything the same, so once you learn how to read one, you can read them all. They will be posted on the internet after the last meeting of the month, and when I say last meeting, I mean urban renewal. So after council's had 2 meetings, after utility board has met, after tourism has met, after urban renewal has met, then they will be posted to the web for the public to see. That way, if there are any errors, we can correct those. I would also, because this board only meets once a month, that if you do find an error, to email the supervisor or whoever is in charge of us and let them know, because you guys only meet once a month. So having a messed up financial, which you shouldn't have anymore because I'm only keeping this one, is a waste of your time. You have decisions to make regarding rates, and me making a mistake on a financial, if you know it before you walk in this room, should be notified to us so we can correct it so that your meetings can be productive. And I apologize for any misconstrue on the financial summary that I had in the past. But I literally didn't think 1 or 2 because somebody said, tell them what the assets are. And I said, okay. Someone said, tell them this. I said, okay. So that's why they were the way they were. But this is the format that they should be, and I hope it's acceptable to everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
I do have one comment. So I have a little black and white printer at home. It looks great in color, but when you print it for us cheapies, I don't know what the solution is, but it's really hard to read.
I'll
when I print it
grayscale
myself.
it for you.
So the only suggestion I might have is make a white spot for the text there.
I can
That
move
screws
it up a little bit, so
But
it'll,
whatever, and it uses a lot of toner, not that I'm cheap, but
I'll fix
I
it.
think about it. Anyway, otherwise, good job, thank you.
Yes, I have a question for maybe the board to consider, see what your opinion is. But if we were to add an additional line that listed the prior month's revenue or expenses,
In,
on all of these, just after a statement of revenue expenses, if we added a line at the bottom, and this is more of a discussion.
just the total,
What the input is, what?
the total for the prior month?
Yes.
Not each
So then
detail?
we're doing a comparison, so we're not going back looking where it's on this report. So we're not spending the time to go back and look to see how much of a variance there was, because there are some
When you-
substantial variances.
When you say prior month, you mean prior month or prior year of the same month?
Prior month.
So you would want month to date. And so say this is February. You would want month to date and then January and then year to date?
And I think month to date is kind of a misnomer. It's that month, because we're not
The-
middle of the month saying so far this month. So this is this is the month of February. He's asking for, after the total, like you have it, put, maybe not the text, but say, it would be January total expenses, January total revenue. So you'd have to look at the total from the previous month's spreadsheet. Am I stating that correctly?
Yes, so if you, I
Did
didn't do
you
the
write
electric.
on yours?
Pardon me?
Did you write on yours?
I did. So I'm looking at the water account, and we have a month-to-date expense of 213,000 and change. Last month was 116. So then I went and looked to see, we can see here, but it stands out what the differences are. So if they're the same, then there's not a big issue to go back and look and hunt for the difference. But when we have a $100,000 difference or $98,000 difference, 102,000, I was looking to see where that difference was, and manually going back, looking at the previous month's report to come up with how much was last month, and if that was on there. And typically, I know the end of year and things change, but typically from June to July, it should be relatively consistent.
So you just want a line in here that says last month and then put that underneath the month to date?
Yes, preceding month.
Okay.
So if
Long as
if that's a
you realize it's a bell
spreadsheet,
curve.
you could just
You know,
move
so,
that.
it's gonna stay pretty steady up to about spring, and then, then when the water and everybody, and it depends on the fund,
Sure.
I see what you're
Water and
asking for.
sewer, yeah, but you can do that, just realize where you're at within the year.
I,
You don't want a bell curve, and I know you know bell curve.
But if something's off on that bell curve,
Then
we
we're
would see it.
gonna be able to see it, okay.
okay, I see what
Okay,
you're saying.
You see what we're,
So the
Yeah,
point
I see what
again,
you're, I see what you're asking
the
for. I can do
213
that.
versus 115. I went through, I fumbled through the reports to see what it was last month, and found it, and I wrote it here, and then there's $102,000 difference, started looking at where that number was. That's gonna save a step, don't have to go here. It's gonna show we have $102,000 difference.
Okay, I see what you're asking for. I
If
can
they're the
put,
same, one of the reports is really close.
I can put that,
One was within a couple $1,000, so we're good.
I can put that in there.
Okay.
I also wanted to, and I forgot, I wanted to address depreciation. Okay, I wanted to address that. When you look at fixed assets and you see, you're looking at water, let me pull up water.
Yes.
Okay, so when you look at fixed assets, you see that 11,766,000. That is in a completely separate module, okay? I have a fixed assets module, just like I have a fund management module and a utility module. I cannot update that depreciation in December, because if I do, then I can't undo it. Does that make sense to you? Once I do December, I can never go back. So we don't do it until after the auditors have agreed with us. Because there have been times where I didn't capitalize something and they said, no, we want that capitalized. And then there have been times when I did capitalize something and they said, no, we don't think you should capitalize that. So until they and I agree upon the fixed assets that have been capitalized in the depreciation, we don't update it. Therefore, it doesn't get updated in January, February, and March because of the exact same thing. And this has been since before I started. I could manually calculate your depreciation and put it in, but the purpose of the computer is to take away human error, and therefore I don't. And that's why you don't have depreciation for 4 months out of the year. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I understand that. My thought was possibly, basically depreciation is fixed. Just plug in that number. We know it's unaudited, and we'll can have a relative comparison just on this little spreadsheet. I'm assuming it's a spreadsheet.
Okay, the only problem I have with that, and it wouldn't matter this year, okay? But in prior years, I capitalized $14 million, and it was a lot of difference between January and December. And then when we did the RO plan, it was a big difference between January and December. So where you say it's a fixed amount, it is, but depending on what's capitalized, it can be greatly different than what I put on here.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's unaudited. It's an estimate, which is essentially fixed during the year. We do.
Okay, I can put it in there.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I agree. On the water fund, since that's what we've been talking about, it's been running, it's $50,000 per month up until December, and you leave December out until we get it audited to plug that number in, so it's.
But go ahead and plug in a January, February, March number.
But
Okay.
we've had the case, and even last month, where Tom said, well, we made $150,000 or whatever the number was, and that wasn't accurate because he was excluding depreciation. And
Yeah.
if we have a number in, granted, we know, and again, this is my take, if you see it different, but we know that the last 3 or 4 months are gonna be kind of hokey, but especially in December, we follow
It'll give you
what it's
an-
been for the previous 11 months.
It'll give you an estimate until I update it in April, so I will go ahead and put that in as well. That would be fine.
We're okay with that?
Okay?
That's
All right.
reasonable, I think. It
No,
doesn't
that's
give you
good.
a lot of extra work, since
No.
assuming this is a separate
No, it
set of
doesn't.
spreadsheet, so you can manage
It doesn't bother
that.
me at all. As a matter of fact, I think you'll find there are no, well, I don't think there's any errors. Please let me know if there are, but I think you'll find this is a much easier format for me to follow along and without transposing numbers or putting anything wrong, because when I was doing it before, I had downloaded it in Excel, and I was downloading 22, and then I was cut and pasting, and then I was looking at the financial that didn't have all of that stuff in it when I was doing the summary, instead of looking at what I was actually giving you, because I got, I started looking at the wrong thing, and then I did the whole thing without even knowing I was looking at the wrong thing. Because to me, that is the financial, not what you guys were having me download and put in stuff that hadn't happened yet. So that's why it was very confusing for me, and this isn't. So I will make those two changes, and if you have any more, feel free to email Brad Davidson, not Rick Klein. Thank you. You guys have.
We don't have his home email yet.
Brad.Davidson@lahanacolorado.org.
I'm talking about rick.klein at home address. I don't have that one.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Lisa. All right, we ready for Tom?
Come
Mr. C?
on down, Tom.
We already have our water packets up, so it's.
That's right.
Convenient. Well, since we're talking about the fun world that's finances, and it's basically been gone over for water though, as you can see that we did show a net gain of $68,997, and let's not forget those 97 cents for the month of January. However, depreciation would need to be subtracted from that. That makes for us a pretty decent month. Looking at, on the expense side, some of the major expenses, or what cost us basically the most, would have been insurance costs. And then in the distribution side, where we were working with a lot of the frozen meters, frozen services, replacement on all of those, having to order in new frost-proof bottoms or the frost plates that go on the bottom of a meter. Generally, that's what, if the meter starts to freeze, the bottom blows off and it saves the meter and you just have to replace those. Getting new frost-proof lids to replace, and in addition to other areas where they're known to freeze. We're trying to get a handle on where a lot of the usual suspects are when that happens this time of year. On the water side, if there's any questions on finance, I'm just kind of glossing over that for the most part.
You're good.
The RO plant, again, it's off-season, so we're doing busy routine maintenance, ensuring everything is ready when people really start turning open their taps. A lot of that was flushing air relief valves to ensure that they're not clogged, changing oil and greasing the finished water pumps and the RO motors, etc. Replaced one of the lids on manganese filter number 1. These are the original lids that are still on those they take the brunt of the pressure when the filters are in operation, plus they are removed, basically once or twice a month for inspection services. So they're generally starting to get worn out. They don't keep the seals airtight. So we're looking to probably replace all 3 of those lids coming up really soon. Same goes with the corroded needle valves on all the wells. Those will last for 2 to 3 years, and then they just need to be replaced. The nature of the raw water is usually pretty harsh on those, and much like their name suggests, they're very small and very pointed. And those are the valves where we get a lot of our measurements from on what is coming out of the wells. Conducted our annual maintenance and adjustments to our SOP manuals. Rebuilt a few flow meters to keep them going. Distribution side, like I mentioned, going through expenses, we assisted numerous customers with frozen services and pipes. Most of the issues we had on our side, outside of our usual suspects that are very shallow meters that were constructed that way, the problems we had were customers who took it upon themselves to go into their meter pit and to turn off the water to their house because they had a frozen pipe or some other issue, then did not replace the lid or the frost-proof lid correctly. They perhaps tried to manhandle the valve that is inside and wound up breaking those. So we spent a lot of time going behind and reminding our customers that if you need to get into your meter pit for any reason whatsoever, to call us. If it's during the day, we will do our best to get there within 15 to 20 minutes. If it's during the weekend, our on-call person will try to maintain the same time frame, but it might be just a little bit longer.
Hey, Tom.
Sir.
You had mentioned that you remind the customers to call before they access these panels. Is that something that we send out in where can that information be found if they haven't already messed it up, I guess? Are we sending that out as a social media blast or anything like that? How do you get that information out?
As to the number to call?
Yeah.
It's the same emergency number that they would call if there was a power outage or anything else, which is just calling the power plant. A lot also will call the non-emergency number at the police department, and then the police department will forward that information to the power plant, and then it gets to the on-call phones with whichever department may be needed. Those are things that are mentioned to folks when they first open up a utility billing account. But as everyone knows, at that point in time, you're just wanting to fork over your money, sign your dotted lines, and then get down to business. Everyone who experienced this, of course, we reminded them. Several of them are also repeat customers. Some folks like to try to massage their water usage by getting into and out of the meter pit, and turn it on, turn it off. Some people try to get fancy to reverse the meters, thinking it'll somehow spin backwards. Our newer meters have reverse flow detection on it, and that's when you kind of sit them down for a really good chat at that time and explain what theft of city services could be.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Outside of that, we repaired one fire hydrant and installed a new one that was near the large hangar out at the industrial park. The old hydrant that we took out that was near the hangar, we were able to use some of the functioning pieces and parts on it to repair the hydrant that is up at 8th in Colorado. That saved us a pretty fair amount of time in having to find an operating valve, which is down at about 5th Street, and would have had Colorado shut off from about 5th up to around 9th or possibly even 10th for a couple hours while we repaired that hydrant. And we're still also working a lot with the sheriff's office. We pulled all the old services, found some that were so old they weren't even on our maps anymore. All that stuff is out, taken care of. Now we're looking at finally putting in new stuff down there. Questions? Any other questions on the water report before you move on to wastewater?
Rummaging through here, I saw our liability for the conduit or payment for the conduit was $75,000 a year. I thought that was $50,000.
Now that progress is being made and there's still, more engineering, more expenses that are on their particular side, they always have to adjust what the operating expenses under the current MOA are now. And we just do our best to match what we believe those expenses may be. They don't put out their budget until several months after we have already had to have ours set in stone and ready for approval by City Council.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir? Any other water questions at the moment? Moving on to wastewater, you'll see our revenues were $237,210.81. Expenses were up at $477,255, and those 23 pennies. The main expense through the month is our initial February 1st payment of our main SRF loan for the building of the wastewater treatment plant. Those payments are, the large ones like that are made 2 times a year, February 1st and August 1st. So that looks like an extraordinary hit right now because we have had only 1 month's worth of revenue so far in the year. But if you were to remove what the interest rate and the payment were, then it kind of comes down to a pretty decent month expense-wise. Wastewater was busy pretty much jetting a lot of lines that it seems there's been some stuff breaking loose or some stuff that was perhaps put into one of our manholes somewhere. You kind of try to chase things down to see if you can figure out what it was. Unfortunately, it hasn't been done in a place where we have recently run a camera through. We're investigating the possibility of purchasing a smaller camera, not the full-sized rig that our contractor uses, WFI, when they come through, because that's upwards and over $120,000 for what it is they use. But there's a type of camera that's reasonably new where you can fix it to the front of the jetter hose and then you can send it through and back, and it comes with really good quality pictures. They're not live, so you have to be careful when you send it through. But that way, when we have instances like this, we can investigate immediately, and it would be more just like our expense instead of an added contractor expense coming in to try to find what might be going on. We calibrated all of the flow meters down at the wastewater plant as well. The HVAC at the Headworks building has been repaired. It was suggested to have one sensor moved to a different location so that more accurate and consistent readings will continue so that it's heated better. There was that unfortunate part that it was down when we had that really cold weather, so a lot of our hydrants, wall spigots and some of that piping did freeze. It's all been replaced since then. A few other things going on. The biggest one is we've sent out our second notice of violation for businesses who have yet to comply with last year's backflow testing. This is the final nice letter they'll get. For those that don't fall into compliance at the end of this month, I'll pay a special visit to them myself with their third and final notice, reminding them they have until the end of March to get it completed, and if they do not, then their water will be shut off until they do comply. That's the same rule that goes for anybody and everybody, regardless of which business it may be. Continuing work on the lead and copper survey of the city. Again, anyone in the city who has not completed one of those, please do so. Get it turned back into us right away. That way we can continue to update our files and begin the process of writing what our plan will be that is required by the EPA to replace all lead and copper and other appurtenances that go along if they meet what guidelines they happen to say.
If people haven't done that, how do they?
They should have received, cycle 2 should have received 2 copies in their utility bill. Cycle 1 should be receiving copies, hopefully starting with their next utility bill. We're going to put a copy up on Facebook or in a link, and then hopefully put a copy up on the website that they can download. They can also pick up copies in the utility billing office.
And that was in December? Cycle
No,
two?
I just got mine and filled it out, forgot to bring it in though, so don't forget to bring it in.
Gotta bring them in.
Cycle 2 should have already gotten them.
They've received it twice.
Okay. I'm good on that, so I'm on cycle 2. I'll get an email, maybe that's the issue.
Could be.
Okay.
But we're gonna start pushing really hard to get those turned in. Come up, when the weather is a lot better, probably start in April or May. For any place that we have not received one, we'll start sending teams out to go and visit with the resident and see if we can assist them and make a determination what their plumbing is.
And I just had a thought about, back in June, I think it was, we had a revolving fund hearing or whatever for 16 some million.
It was in August is when they came and gave their presentation.
Okay.
At that particular time, our plan was for 16.5 million. Since they've changed the manner in which they're allocating funds, we've decided to take a step back from that. We're currently reworking our plan to reduce that amount significantly, find out what would work for us best, and then we'll resubmit that plan. The major changes was, at the time we were looking at 16.5, we were probably gonna split that into 2 separate tranches, ask one year, one the second year. Keeping what we would request not more than 10 million, because at the time principal forgiveness was going to be 5 million. They've now reduced principal forgiveness down to 2 million, and the planning and development grant, which we had been awarded, that is $300,000, the state giveth, the state taketh away. So they took those back to try to afford and be able to offer more loans. So we've applied to a couple different grants that are either technical assistance or for planning and design. And hopefully we can be awarded one of those, but just like us, anyone else in the state who lost their D&E grant, they're gonna be going to those same pots as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir?
Any other questions?
Tom, you had a gentleman going around the city last time prior to our meeting. And I don't remember the purpose of what he was doing, but we didn't get to hear from him directly. I know he was present.
Oh, Mike Weber?
Yeah.
He's going over all of the conduit information. He's going to ensure that we will request an appropriate amount of water through the conduit that would be needed to, if we went with the conduit, to take care of our selenium issues and also all of the emerging contaminants that are coming down the pipeline. That would be your PFAS chemicals, manganese, arsenic, anything of that nature. And they're also going to cost out what the alternative treatment options would be if we were not part of the conduit. And they're hoping to have that report and study completed for the March utility board meeting.
Who does he work for?
Hazen and Sawyer.
Who?
Hazen and Sawyer Engineering.
Okay.
Speaking of selenium, Tom, I don't know if you got to see the science fair, but there was a young woman who had a project on selenium and water and ways to treat that. I think you should have a discussion with her in the future.
You know, I attempted to have discussions with her, but she seemed like she knew it all already.
Good job there.
Yeah, I was pretty proud of the kid. Thank you.
I actually was the judge, and I called up Mr. Seba and I said, hey, I'm looking at a science fair deal. Did she have help? And he said no, and then she informed me no.
So tell us the rest of the story, we're guessing.
My daughter was in the science fair, and her science fair topic was High Plains water, and it was to focus on selenium and its benefit and also its negative impacts, and how much it is that we're currently, that we pull out of our wells or is in our environment. And during her discussions with judges, and as we were trying to come up with questions that she might face, she also made the determination that this is a very good project for her to carry over towards next year. So with all of the studies and things that she was doing independently, she wants to continue those, develop her data, and then have a better presentation for selenium treatment, consumption, usage next year.
Good for her.
Yes, because, you know, at a certain point when, you know, like we take our selenium down, you know, at the water plant, you know, if we left it in that concentrate form, you know, instead of mixing it back with our discharge from the wastewater, it would be a hazardous material. Well, there's a point where, you know, that turns into hazardous material from just selenium. So she's gonna help figure out that point. No, I was really glad she did.
Tom, when do we put her on the payroll?
I can't.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder. I think she's already gunning for my job.
She's going for, yeah, watch out, she might take your job.
Well, yeah.
She may get it.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Awesome. Appreciate that very much. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Jackson.
And as we're waiting for Mr. Jackson, you know, you can see Tom Seba in the underpants coming up at Picklewire.
Here he comes back.
That is not my underpants. There are some things that people just do not need to see. It's the
You should be proud, dude. Go ahead, sir, go.
That's all right. January, we took care of all the Christmas decorations, got them up in storage. As always, we have maintenance on our poles. We had to take down a solar pole for TLM so they could put the bridge across. We worked on all the bucket and digger trucks. We have 3 linemen are participating in education for drone training for a new maintenance program. We had to remove a tree for the street department. As usual on the old equipment, we had one 3-phase service burned down on West 4th. And we had to build a new riser pole and added a 500 kVA transformer for the La Junta mill. Theirs was awful old and they kept burning the switches all the time. And then we had a jumper burned down at 410 Belmont. Just old equipment. Solar accounts, the total kilowatt hours returned to the system was 6,928 kilowatt hours from 25 customers. We made a total of $360 at the avoided cost. There are currently 34 residential and 2 commercial solar customers getting calls and permit requests every day. We continue to work with ARPA and Sand Hills Energy on the solar project for the industrial park. We're still working with the Department of Energy and DOLA as the status of our grant for the 4 megawatt battery storage and microgrid resilience funds with Colorado Energy Office. And we met with Colorado Association of Municipal Utilities, ARPA, and the State Energy Office, as now the microgrid grant project is a big deal. And La Junta's on the front end of that. We've already made application for one. Did you have any questions on the financials? Okay.
No, thanks.
Bill, while you're up here, hold on, just thank you personally for, you know, getting this microgrid going on electric. You know, that's one of the things that will help us out in the future, you know. Just like back in the 1930s when we split off from the REA and got our own power plant. And that fueled the economic development. You know, this microgrid will help fuel our future and keep the lights on for our industries and our citizens. So thank you for going that route.
If you don't get on the bus early, it'll leave you.
Yep, nowadays, that bus is heading out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Mr. Montoya.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to take a quick second to kind of address Mr. Vila's question, even though sanitation wasn't brought up. I know that I can speak for sanitation in that we were still just over $12,000 in the red through 6 months of the increase last year. So we weren't quite in the black. I think this year with the increase, we should hopefully be in the black. But through 6 months, we were still in the red, about just over $12,000. So just wanted to throw that out there for you.
Thank you.
You bet. Looking at the financials, you can see our our assets are just over just under $1.9 million. I do want to bring up under liabilities, you can see post-closure costs there, $504,000. Hopefully that number will be changing soon with the closure of the Rocky Ford landfill. Should be about $100,000 to $200,000, hopefully. That'll decrease how much we have to keep in our account to cover post-closure costs. So
That's just closure of cell number one, right?
what's that?
That's just closing cell number one?
No, they closed the Rocky Ford landfill.
It's number one
Not
site.
Rocky Ford, sorry. Is it?
Oakley.
Yeah. Oakley closed the Rocky Ford landfill.
Gotcha. Okay, the one off Highway 10 and 21.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So that'll decrease the amount we have to keep in our account for post-closure costs.
You know, that's huge because, you know, they've been trying for a while to get that through Department of Health and Environment. So that'll help out a lot.
Is that a long-term liability, or is that
It
due
was,
this year?
you know, see, that was the county landfill that was built in 1976, and you know, and we cited the new one in like 1987, and we were just starting to go through. That's when Subtitle D regulations came in and stuff, where you had to line them in the bottom and put in the pipes and all the stuff in monitoring, and so yeah. That was huge, that closed site number one, because, you know, it was, you know, near Timp Creek. But the thing that the county had foresight in 1983 was they wanted us to put a pipe leach system in so that they would capture any contaminants before it would ever hit Timp Creek or any of the waterways. And they found out that they weren't getting any contaminations. Yeah, so I say good job to Otero County.
As far as about your question regarding long-term costs, you're always going to have post-closure costs as long as you have a landfill. So you'll always have some kind of money there that will be allocated for that, for any kind of potential post-closure costs. Which ultimately what it means is that if the landfill should have to be closed immediately, this money would have to be used in order to close it down. But as long as it keeps running, this money will never really need to be used.
No, it'll fluctuate by the cells, because
size.
you know, because they do numerous cells on this one, and when they close off one, they'll try to get rid of that liability as they open up the new one. So it'll kind of do like sanitation.
So there's an expense we should expect, not $504,000 this year, I guess is my question.
It should decrease
Yes.
due to the closing of the Rocky Ford landfill.
It's a
Anywhere
long-term
between 100 and
liability,
200,000.
Gary.
So it's a,
It's a
it's,
long-term
okay,
liability.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
And
I think it'll drop down to about 300.
Yeah, it could. But anyway, I just want to bring that up. I did have a meeting with Oakley this morning on the board, so they brought that up, so I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. To continue on, you can see our revenue there and our expenses underneath the assets and liability. It shows that we had a $59,000 revenue exceeding our expenses. I just want you to know that that doesn't include our depreciation. If you take under where it says budget tax, if you take our 1.452 million, which is kind of our basic budget amount, you divide that by 12, you're looking at about 121,000. So if you want to compare your revenue to 121,000, you can kind of see what we're actually looking at as far as if we're above or below. But our summer months will be well over 121,000, so that'll pick up for the months that we're lower end, such as January, we're at 114,000. If that makes sense.
Understood.
Come on, Martin.
Then, if you want to look at the second sheet, which may not have been in the email,
It was not,
I knew Gary was going to bring that up.
sorry.
No, that's my.
Mine dropped to the last page, wasn't your fault.
Yeah. Basically, that's our information for this month, where the amount of tonnage that we took in for, of the land, well, I guess that we took to the landfill, and then what we took in for recycling. Does anybody have any questions?
So the first is number of customers,
Yes, that's correct.
and then that's volume in tons, and then the other income from boxes, etc.
Yes. And I'm still including the total tonnage that we're taking in. Basically, that's calculated through the number of, we have daily receipts that we bring from the landfill, and we're just keeping those in a spreadsheet.
Okay.
To try and make sure that we're close to what they're charging us, one, and two, so we can break it up between what's residential, what's commercial, and what we're taking out from the transfer station.
Questions?
Any questions? The only other thing I wanted to point out and just let you guys, or make you guys aware, is that our trash truck, again, went down. And we have a trash truck that was towed to Pueblo last week, so just letting you know that's an ongoing issue. That's all I've got. Yes, it was a problem with the DEF system.
With the what?
It was a problem with the DEF system.
DEF, yeah.
Yes.
So you're running with one truck?
What's that?
You have one truck?
No, we had to use our backup truck because today we had to pick up double trash because of the holiday on Monday. So we had to use our backup truck, and then we had to borrow the truck out from the industrial park in order to pull off a double trash pickup day today. We got it done, but it was challenging.
With the semi, you know, it's always on the road, and it'll, the DEF systems work very well because it burns it off. With the trash truck, you're going from property to property to property, stop and go, and you don't get that heat up to burn them off, and they need something different on those.
Yeah.
Because ever since they saddled us with it, guys, it's a problem. But it doesn't seem like they got a good solution right now for sanitation trucks.
For any,
For semis?
all the diesels have that problem.
Yes.
It's plug up, it's,
The only distance we have to burn off in a DEF system is going out to the landfill
yeah.
and back. And generally, that's not enough to
You
make
gotta
that
run 'em
DEF
off.
system work the way it's intended to work.
Yeah. So I have a reputation for being picky.
Okay.
On landfill,
Uh-huh.
look on your thing. It's not roll-offs. Just strike the zero, the O there
Okay.
on your tonnage. See it?
You're
Yep.
thinking about robocalls.
Well, you know, people like
Just have to keep my reputation for noticing things.
Sorry about that.
Don't tell that to
Anybody
Dean.
else? Excuse me?
Don't tell that to Dean.
He's already noticed. I got one more for him, I'm sorry to say. Okay, anybody else? Thanks, Martin.
You bet.
Oh, I do have a question ad hoc here. We have our banks, is all of our cash in one bank, or do we have various banks? Not that it matters, I'm just interested.
All of the utility funds and the general fund, as well as property management, internal services are in one bank account. That bank account keeps $50,000 in it at all times, and then it's moved in and out of a sweep account as needed, and we get interest on that sweep account. We get interest on the checking account too, but it's dollar something, ain't worth mentioning.
Yeah.
All of the minor funds have their own bank accounts, such as tourism, employee benefit, conservation trust fund, outdoor conservation. Yeah, we changed the name of that because of some grant stuff. But
Okay.
yes, they're all in one, and then we separate it out
Understand.
via the computer.
Yep.
And so we can pay multiple, like say you are owed money from electric and water, we can cut you one check.
Yeah, I understand.
What's your interest rate?
Nothing at all, I'm not interested.
Well, on the sweep, it's like, on the sweep, they went up and they did almost 8%. And it's coming down now, but they bumped it really high for us, so we were getting in the, like, last month, I think we got 8,000. So, yeah,
It's dropping like a rock.
it's dropping now, yeah. So it really depends on
Put your
where I
minutes
put
in
the
the
money
accounts.
as to what the interest rate is.
Yeah. Who's the bank that's doing the, holding it?
The main account is through CB&T, but we also have a bank account with State Bank. We have bank accounts with First National Bank. I have savings in Colo Trust, and I also have a Fidelity Sweep account. And the Colo Trust and the Fidelity Sweep account get the best interest, and they are also the most liquid. So an example would be, if you wanted to buy him a new trash truck, I could probably get you $100,000 in the next 48 hours. So.
He wants 5.
500,000?
I thought it was 3, Martin.
Hey,
Go up like
Oh,
in
you're
the
right.
last month.
It keeps,
If I trade in my other trucks, that's minus 160.
That inflation's gotten out of hand.
It's 340,000.
247.
340,000.
247.
is this brand new or used?
Gary, when are we gonna look at action on the trucks? Are we?
do you have any anticipated time we're gonna resolve truck purchases or whatever?
I think all we're waiting on is a presentation to council for a budget amendment.
Okay.
So
Was the truck
Good.
that we approved and purchased, the pole truck?
You said a pole truck?
That fell
This is the
through.
sanitation.
The price escalated, so that thing got sidelined.
So instead,
This is a different one.
So I think we're talking about trash truck is what
Yes.
is needed.
Yeah, not the electric, not the digger truck that
Not the digger.
we were talking about for electric. That's off the,
Move that budgeted.
That's what I was thinking about, moving that budget item over from the digger truck to the.
did I state that correctly, Bill?
We're looking at, we've extended the bid, we're looking at another one that they submitted from Terex. We'll look to demo that. It'll be slightly more than what we budgeted, but I think we'd still get a good truck.
For the audience, he said we have rebid it and we're looking at something that will be a little more than what we had planned. Is that accurately said?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we traditionally submit, do you want to do this, Bill? Sorry.
each year, the Arkansas River Power Authority and the City of La Junta Electric Department award a $1,400 scholarship to a senior whose parents receive electricity from or their family receive electricity from the City of La Junta. This year, the application deadline is on April 12th. We've been waiting to publicize this until the utility board gives us the go-ahead to participate. It's $700 from us and $700 from ARPA.
You need a motion for that?
Sir.
I'll make a
So
motion.
moved.
Second. Joe and Paul, sorry. Any discussion?
Aye. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, I what? Just for information, ARPA gives $700 to each of the 6 member cities to match
Correct.
for the high school student. All right, I'll call for the question. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
When can they pick up an application for the scholarship?
From Paula Mahone.
Paula Mahoney, Secretary to Mr. Klein, has applications. Mr. City Manager.
34 years. It's hard to believe that it's coming to an end. You know, thank you guys. It's been a ride. It's been a ride. We've done some good things, you know, on the utility side. you know, with reverse osmosis, with the wastewater treatment plant. Tom, thank you on the wastewater treatment plant. You did a fantastic job. There's always gonna be something. The city's never in. Rome was never finished. So, you know, we just keep on trying the best that we can to serve the citizens and make the best decisions that we can. And good luck to everybody here. And I was so glad, you know, for Ed, for that you brought up about the rate increases, because that was top of mind for me to get that, for you guys to look at next month, you know, and get on your plate. So, and with that,
All right.
my party will be the 29th from 10:30 to 2:30. We're gonna open the trail at 1 o'clock. Channel 5 will be there to see the ribbon cutting. So it should be a
Cool.
good event.
What time are you cutting the ribbon?
Huh?
What time are you cutting the ribbon?
1 o'clock. Yeah, so you gotta be there, Joe.
Be at the playgrounds, probably?
Yeah.
Or at
right
the head
yeah,
end.
we'll do it at the bridge.
Okay, on the south side,
The one at 10th and,
whatever it is,
Barnes.
Barnes, yeah,
yeah.
okay.
So, a lot of people use the trail, they got the handrails up and stuff, so, yeah. I hope that people will enjoy it, and makes a difference.
Yeah, it's a good asset.
That's at Rick and Tile Park?
No, Rick and Tile Park.
Sick and tired? No. So, well, I'd be remiss, we appreciate your years of service to the city. I know you've been dedicated and always had our best interest, and I think we appreciate it, and the citizens, if they don't know, we should need to make sure they know that you've given your best efforts, and that's
I really
appreciated.
enjoyed working with your parents, your grandparents, and your families, you know, and that's the thing about the job, that, you know, it's a hard job. But when you're trying to make a difference for the people that you really care about, there's no better job in America. There really isn't. So thank you for allowing me to assist. Because,
Thank you.
You know, never did a job by ourselves. And, you know, Dean Mallow, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So, you know, couldn't have done any of the jobs without Dean Mallow. And I know this would have been his last meeting too. And I know he got sick, and he told me not to give him any kudos or anything, but the man went way up and beyond for a lot of years, guys, for this community and the people of this community. So thank you, Dean, for everything you've done. Couldn't have done it without you.
Is he retiring too?
Yeah, he's retiring at the end of the month. And to my supervisors,
Dean?
couldn't have done it without you guys. So thank you, and the best for you.
The
in
city
future.
attorney?
The city attorney, yes, sir.
Okay, anyone else have comments on board? If not, meeting is adjourned at 5:08. Thank you.